My name is Barry Hughes. I work for a company called Blue Wave Technology. We're a Salesforce Silver partner. I'm also a Salesforce instructor. We've got 7 or 8 employees in Blue Wave who are instructors with Salesforce University. We're also a Pardot partner. For my own part, I actually got an email 2 days ago from a friend of mine who reminded me that this week in 1996, that's 20 years ago, I made my first HTML page. So I felt a bit old. So I've been developing web pages and apps for a while. Let's get this right. I was a certified advanced Salesforce developer, and I'm now a Salesforce certified platform developer 2. Is that right? I think that's right. Okay. I also co-organize a developer group based in Dublin in Ireland. And if you do get onto meetup.com, there's almost certainly a user group or developer group near you. Please join it. Joining is free. 99.9% of events are also free. You get to meet some great people. For example, in Dublin, in October, just a month after Dreamforce, we had the CTO of the Taz group, the people who made the very first App Exchange component, Lightning component, and they came and talked to us about what they're going to do for the next 12 months with Lightning. I'm also a certified Salesforce instructor with Salesforce University, and it was through that, I'm meeting some really good attendees of these courses, that an app started to form in my head that I was going to create. And this app was a selfish app. It was an app for me. It was an app to update my timesheets for my company, Blue Wave. Blue Wave are like a lot of consultant companies. We have a sales team who go off and earn opportunities for the company, obviously using Salesforce opportunities to get close won, hopefully. Then we've got a project management team, Lorraine Nolan, our project management team, organize with those salespeople in terms of what we're going to do for the company. And then administrators and developers like myself, we do some work on those projects and we create project timesheet records. So a pretty simple structure of our data model. And the app I created, and I was lucky enough to not only create it and put it in production, but I actually spoke about it at Dreamforce in September and gave away all the code. I'll give you the link in a few minutes for this code. But I created a Visualforce page that was a single page application. There was no Apex at all involved, okay? And I'll give you a demo of it in a second. It's quite rich. It's using Bootstrap for look and feel because most people know Bootstrap. It used AngularJS to handle all of the JavaScript. Again, no Apex. I put in some chart. I'll show you in a second what the charts look like. And it was, as long as you knew JavaScript, you could make this app, okay? And because it was a Visualforce page, I was able to make a hybrid remote MobileSDK app from Salesforce, and I can tap on my phone on a little app and I'm straight into my app, okay? So it was quite good, and I blogged about it at my blog, and all the instructions how to create it are there. So instead of talking about it, let me show you that one first. So let's see if I can get this working. I'll have to exit my show, I think. No, I don't. Okay, so let's go to so this is the page I created, okay? So this is all a single Visualforce page, and I have to keep looking around here for the screen. And again, you've got all the different ways of editing records and saving records. It's all CRUD, and I can go into projects. Again, this is all a single Visualforce page doing all of this work. This is a project. I can see all the timesheets for a project. I've got some charts involved in here. Let me know what happened with the project, okay? So pretty full single page application written in Angular. The only reason it was a different Visualforce page is because it had no Apex into it, okay? So my plan for today was to show you all of this, thinking I was great, okay? This is the screen, and that's where you can get the code. I have a GitHub repo. I think it's the only repo on it at the minute, but you can grab the code, you can download there, and there's actually a link on my blog as an unmanaged package if you want to get it down that way and install it in your org. The only thing is it has Blue Wave's logo on the top, but you guys can change it and use it if you wish to. I was going to present this to you. It was great. But as I said a few minutes ago, I'm a Salesforce University instructor, and Salesforce University have been quite busy in the last 6 months. As I said, the certifications have changed for developers, so the courses are changing. And Salesforce University never had a Lightning Components course, okay? Over the last 6 months, they've been creating one. And the first one being taught is happening in America at the end of this month. Myself and actually Simon Goodyear, one of the organisers of this event, are both preparing to teach for the first time in the EMEA region. I think he's meant to go to teach it in Bangalore, I think. Anyway, it's people who want to know this stuff. So he, as we were preparing London's Calling, he gave me a hint. Would you not make this in Lightning? So with 3 weeks to have a look at it, I decided why not. Let's see if I can make this as a Lightning app, okay? So, first of all, what is a single page application? What are we going to make here? Well, effectively, it's a list of records, and you have actions on those records. Usually it's the normal CRUD actions: create, read, update, delete. And when you click on one, this screen disappears. A form comes up that you can save, and I have a few more actions on the demo I'm going to show you that I've built since these screenshots. And when you save it, this disappears and this screen is refreshed for you. Okay? This kind of templating is automatic in AngularJS, but we don't have a routing mechanism in Lightning components. Okay? It's a little bit different. So when I went to create this, what were the issues I had? What did I have to consider? Well, first of all, I was looking for other examples. I wanted to see if someone else had done this before. I couldn't find one. I couldn't find anyone who'd made a single page application. I'd seen lots of single screen applications with Lightning components, with panel on one side and panel on the other side, but nothing with this in it. So that was, I had to find out how to do that. The second thing is we didn't have any router, depending on where you're from. It's router or router, like AngularJS has. I didn't want to use Bootstrap. Salesforce Lightning Design System is excellent. Let's use that. Let's see what that's like. And how do I handle the CRUD operations? How do I get a component to appear and disappear in my code so there's no memory leaking or anything like that? How do I do that? And I wanted a menu system, because I have a menu system on top of my screen. So how do I make all these things in Lightning? So before I talk through it, I'll show it to you. And let's hope this behaves itself. Come on. Hang on for a second here. Let me just close the show. There we go. All right. So this is what the app looks like. Now, unfortunately, this is not yet on GitHub, because I haven't quite finished it yet. But the main essence of the code is all there, okay? So this is our screen. I'll just refresh to make sure it's all there. Now, first thing you'll notice that it is in Lightning Experience, the bar on the left-hand side. I have the top bar colored. This is a title bar. This is just one component. And this menu here, I'll talk to you in a minute, but this is actually a project called SLDSX. It's worth looking it up. Force.com Labs have created they've got a project going where they want to create Salesforce Lightning Design System and add a JavaScript functionality to it. If you look at Lightning Design System and you see tabs, they look lovely, but they don't work. You tap on the tabs and you have to worry about the JavaScript yourself. What they're doing in SLDSX is they're making components from an unmanaged package at the minute with all the JavaScript in it. So you just simply use a component called tab. Okay, that's what we're using here. So across the top of it, very simple tabs where I'm using that component to show information that I would have normally on the left-hand menu of the Visualforce page. Finally, how does the editing work? Well, this is what I have to bring you through. How this, this is a component. This lists a component, and I want to let's say I want to edit a record. Now the component disappeared. I can now edit the record. So if I change 5 to, let's say, 6, I did 6 hours that day, and I press save, the save has worked, and it's just refreshed up there to 6. So how did this happen? There's no routing in here, okay? And you can see I've got deleting going on, cloning going on. I can even update a record. And one thing I had never seen was adding a new record, which we can do in this as well, okay? So this is all part of a similar pattern in terms of how this routing works. So let's talk about how this routing actually works. Many of the things I'm going to talk about are small aspects of the new Lightning Components course, which is actually coded Dev 601. So if you're looking for Salesforce University, that's what it's called. So let's talk through the aspects to this app and how it was put together. So the top bar is a single component. I'm actually using Salesforce Lightning Design System grids for this to put the header on one side and the add button on the other side. The tabs on the top are this SLDSX tabs component. And again, there's the GitHub repo. You can download that. There's actually on that GitHub repo, there's a README, and it brings you to a full screen that's on that website for Salesforce Lightning Design System. And it shows you how to install it on your org. And it effectively is an extra number of components that are just installed on your org and you can use them. That's what it is. And finally, my list of records. And this is really what I want to concentrate on for this session. So we have an SLDS table. When we use SLDS, this is the actual screen on a phone. So it's responsive. This initial component is pretty straightforward. It's an Aura iteration over some records, which we get from Apex. You probably would have seen lots of examples of that before. Certainly if you go to Trailhead, you'll see an example of it. I've got a button group here, so that's actually an SLDSX component, some buttons together. I have coloured them red, white and blue, even though I'm from Ireland, but that's okay. And you can get all information on these things from Lightning Design System. Who's not heard of Salesforce Lightning Design System before? Has everyone heard of it? Good, all right. Okay, so that's the structure of the overall app. But let's talk about how my list and my form work together. So let's go back here. This part of the app, this is a single component, but that component is what I call the single page application component. That component is made up of two main parts. In web language, it's two divs. In fact, it is two divs. The first div opens up a component of its own. That component has the list of records, okay? And that's a pretty straightforward one. The second div, I call it the record route. That's the div I'm going to put the form in that you just saw me editing, okay? I'm going to inject it in there, but that div initially is blank. The div, however, does have an Aura ID attribute, okay? It has to have one for this to work. Hiding the main list and opening up the form div is sort of boring because it actually is CSS here. We're changing a class to hide one from the other, so that's nothing new for most web developers. But this div is empty. So how do I put a form into the div? So first of all, I have to add to my main SPA component, I have to add a dependency, okay? It's an Aura tag, it's called Aura dependency, and the resource attribute marks me up to a component that I have, okay? So I've made this component called project timesheet form. That's the form you saw me editing, okay? It's not on the main SPA component, I'm going to inject it in. So when I press on view, or when I press on edit, what exactly happens? Well, what I'm doing is I'm dynamically creating a component in JavaScript. So this is in the controller part of the bundle, okay? And I call this is clicking on edit, for example. And I'm getting a handle, I'm going to create a component using $A. This is the component, and I can only do this because I had a dependency on it. Then I can give it any of the attributes that it should have. So my form is taking the ID of the record I want to edit. It's also got a few more things I needed. I needed to know if you wanted to see it in edit mode or view mode. And then I had a process mode. That was to tell me, okay, how to save it. Are you cloning the record, or are you saving the record, or are you deleting the record? What are you going to do with this record? Once you've set up these first two parameters, set up the component, the last part is the callback. This is what actually is doing the magic. Now, this is hard to explain a little bit, but my div at the bottom had an Aura ID called record route. Okay? But even though it is empty, all components, all tags that have an Aura ID have an attribute built inside them called vBody. Okay? They all have a body. And we can push things into the body. Okay? So what we're doing here is we're creating the component dynamically. I just made a variable called body. I'm pushing it into the component, and then I'm setting that it's actually going to push it into the vBody of the component. Okay? And then the form gets injected in. That's a little bit technical, but you probably follow what I'm talking about. So now I've hidden the main list, and I've injected my div, and I've shown the div. So when I clicked on a button, that's how the form came up. That's half the story. When I press save or I do an action, what is actually happening? This is where it gets a little bit tricky, but try to keep it with me here. First things first, when I press save on the form screen, so this is my two divs. This is the div I was talking about on top, and the form screen. I press on save, and the saves are always done with Apex. Okay, a Lightning component cannot save things with JavaScript. Like actually, my Visualforce example could, but Lightning cannot. So I'm saving it to my record, and when the Apex code is called, it'll return back to me a result. That's usually either success or failure. If a success comes back, then I will call out to an application event. Is everyone here familiar with events in Lightning components? Yeah? I see some people nodding. All right. So events can be component-based or application-based in their scope. This one has to be application-based because we're telling one component for another component to listen to it. So it's an application event. This router event is going to be listened to by two things. The main component is listening to it. Okay, you've pressed save. What do you want me to do? That one is, okay, so you've pressed save. You want me to hide you and show the list of records. Okay, that's what you're trying to do. And that's what we do. We find, okay, what is the event doing? So I pass through, I think the parameter I call it was page to open, but it can be any parameter. I'm telling it to do something. And I've got some controller code waiting here to do something. There's also something else listening. There is an event listener in the list of records, because if I press cancel, I don't want to refresh the list of records. I just want it to appear. But if I ever press save or edit something, I want to make sure that list of records gets refreshed. Okay? So if I hear this listening going, refresh me, it calls another event which refreshes the records and comes back through Apex and updates the list of records. People are not dazed. Okay, that's good. All right, good. Okay. Took me a while to draw that diagram, never mind do the code. Okay. And that's effectively how it works, except there's one small thing. We're not actually hiding this form. We don't want that form to stay there, because if someone presses view again, we're simply going to push another component and you'll start seeing lots and lots of form screens below it. We want this form screen to go away. It's done its job. It's saved a new record. Blow away. I only want to see the list of records now. So what we can do is we can destroy the component. Now, as a general rule, and Skip Sols, I know, and Dreamforce kept saying this, don't make a component tell another component directly what to do. Okay? That's what events are for. So if I want to destroy a component, you should always get the component itself to destroy itself. All right? So this is the save action on my record route, this form view, this form component. I'm pressing save. You can see I'm calling out an Apex method here. I'm setting the parameter to be the project timesheet I want to save. And this is my callback. So if it does get saved, if it is successful, what do you want to do? Well, I want to call that event router. That's what that is, okay? There's the parameters. I want you to refresh the list. So it now is the second listener knows to go and refresh the list. And I fire the event. Once the event is fired, I immediately destroy this component. It means it completely wipes it from memory. And that div is now effectively empty again. So when you press view, you can put another one in. Okay? So the bit's important here in red. I'm a typical instructor here, okay? All right. How am I doing for time? Good. All right. So some conclusions, and we've got a bit of time for questions, which is good. What did I think overall? There's a bit to get used to. The code isn't quite finished. Something I still have to do, by the way, is, if I go back here and show you, is on my demo. Here you go. I haven't got the projects bit done because I want a project to have a list of projects. And when I open up a project, I want the same component to work again. Haven't got that working yet, but I have an ID ready for it. So I want to finish that before I give it to you in GitHub. That's one big thing we have to do. Apologies, I'm flicking back and forward here. So this is a design pattern that I sort of had to come up with to make this application work. I'm not saying this hasn't been done before. Hopefully someone else has done it better than me and I can learn from them, but this is how I did it. Again, this is showing how we use events and Lightning components to make the work happen that we want to do. It is very flexible and reusable. As I said, I want to use the same component now for my looking at individual projects. But it even gets even better than that, because with Lightning Experience, especially with new Spring 16 releases, I can take that single page application component and drag it onto a layout of a screen. So for example, if I'm opening up the project sheet, project form in Lightning Experience, instead of having a related list of records, I can drag my single page application widget onto it, and they can be editing timesheets without even leaving the project. So it sounds fantastic, and this is the kind of stuff we want to be able to develop as developers. One more thing is that Lightning components themselves are not what we call URL addressable. You can't, on URL, go to mycomponent.cmp. It won't work. But you can go to a Lightning application. In fact, that's what you saw a minute ago. My demo was a full Lightning application. Lightning applications are URL addressable, which means we can make a Salesforce MobileSDK app that points to a Lightning app. So if you ever follow the instructions to make a hybrid remote mobile SDK app, it's always saying, make sure the destination is /apex/ the name of your page for Visualforce. But if you make it /c/ the name of your app.app, it will also work, okay? There's only one issue I've found is that it doesn't rotate when you move your iPad from horizontal to landscape to portrait, but it does work. I showed this to one of the guys at Dreamforce who's on the team who developed Lightning components, and he kind of went, oh, you're doing that. So I think they don't really realize people might do that. I don't think it's best practice, but I think a long-term goal, and this is something that they said at the Meet a Developer session at Dreamforce, was they want to be able to take a Lightning component and Lightning it out directly into a mobile SDK app. That's what they want to do. So we can take these things into mobile SDK, and it really makes mobile SDK development a lot easier. But I'm not here to champion things. I was also a little bit critical. I talked last week actually to Chris Barry, who was one of the instructors for Salesforce University, and I was talking about this whole concept. I showed him this app, and he was saying he shudders when people talk to him about, I have a lovely Visualforce page. Now I have to make it Lightning. No, you don't, okay? Unless you have a valid reason for doing so, don't, okay? It's a waste of money. Visualforce will always work. Salesforce have that trust with their clients. They're never going to deprecate it, and Visualforce is going to stay around, and Lightning out gives Visualforce a whole new lease of life for developers, okay? So don't go and replace the Visualforce page with Lightning if you don't have to. We're using the Visualforce in Blue Ev at the minute. We're not using the Lightning out, okay? So there's an example. Lightning out is a very good compromise, okay? So I have a project coming up where they want a nice piece of code to go into a Visualforce page. I'll make it in a Lightning component and Lightning out to Visualforce so they can have the same thing in Classic as well as eventually in Lightning Experience. One small little warning is that even though this is improved, in winter 15 it improved, and in spring 16 I've heard it has improved as well. We had a session in Dublin at our last developer group from a guy from New Relic. What they do is they do a lot of performance handling, especially of platforms like Salesforce. And they found that many JavaScript engines for different types of browsers, even older versions of Chrome and Firefox, have issues with Lightning, okay? That you can get with some weird OS tweaks, errors in your JavaScript. They reported, I think it was 15% errors at one stage, but now that's down to 2 or 3%. So even if you might get JavaScript error engine errors, they are improving, and even from New Relic, they're telling us that it is improving, okay? And that's pretty much all I have for you. I'm sorry the code is not in GitHub yet, but I've put the whole slide deck on my blog, which is devinthecloud.wordpress.com. You can get me on Twitter at devinthecloud if you want to have a chat, and I'm happy to answer any questions.